And this is Starmer massively on the back foot. You know, his party is currently literally behind Reform in the polls, despite his enormous majority in the House of Commons. He's panicking, and they've rustled up this pathetic stunt. Well, taxpayers are not going to be deceived by this, are they? You know, taxpayers are entitled to be absolutely bloody furious that once again their intelligence is being insulted and their hard-earned cash is being squandered arranging exclusive private jet travel for Albanians who, you know, let's be frank,
have broken the law. Have broken the law.
They've broken the law, and what are they getting? 4 seats each or something on the Friday.
Isabel Oakeshott didn't just challenge Keir Starmer. She went full gladiator, obliterating any hint of polite political exchange in a scorched earth takedown that ended with a savage mic drop, leaving Starmer floundering like a cat in a sudden downpour. If you thought politics was boring, this roast will make you laugh, wince and hit replay just to be sure you heard it right. Because yes, she really said that. And the fallout is louder, richer and far more addictive than your first cup of morning coffee.
It isn't because the man is stupid, it's because, and this is a theme I keep returning to, he lacks judgment. And that is so important for somebody at the top of politics. If you don't have the right judgment, you're not going to last long. So you ask the question, how does he get this off the front pages? Here's what I'm going to say about that. This is not going to go away until he reveals his secret.
Yes.
Now, I don't know exactly what his secret is, but he sure as hell has got one or more secrets, and they relate in some way to Lord Ali and to his
Keir Starmer drifted into British politics like a man who thought a spreadsheet and a lukewarm cup of tea could spark a revolution, turning leader of the opposition into a PowerPoint on tax codes. If charisma were money, he'd be shaking a tin outside Westminster. Then came Isabel Oakeshott, subtle as a sledgehammer with all the restraint of a toddler in a sweet shop, crashing his beige press conference with fireworks, razor-sharp sarcasm, and a full-scale verbal wrecking ball that left his careful monotone in smoking ruins.
Made light of it. He then did the rest of the speech without his jacket on, which is probably a better look for him anyway.
He had less glitter on it, didn't he, basically? I
mean, anyone who puts a shine on Keir Starmer, there will be people who are actually grateful for a little bit of gloss on Keir Starmer, because he's very boring, generally comes across very uncharismatic, doesn't he? But I think the point here is that should never have been allowed to happen. It could have been, as you say, something much more dangerous than glitter. And, you know, the assailant in that case actually did manhandle the leader of...
First swing whack. Isabel Oakeshott skipped the warm-up and went straight for the jugular, skewering Starmer's most glaring flaw. He talks like he's narrating a BBC documentary about glue drying. A voice so lifeless it carries the tragic aura of a sock lost in the wash. Oakeshott nailed it. Political ambient noise. Because Starmer doesn't just drone on, he drones down. And if there were a global championship for sucking the enthusiasm out of a room, he wouldn't just win, he'd be polishing the trophy for a second year running.
Right then, because which of us has any confidence in our border authorities to be checking who's coming in and out, who's overstaying? I mean, this is a complete nonsense. It will rely heavily on people voluntarily returning when their visas run out. I have no confidence whatsoever that this will be properly regulated, that the limits on it will be properly enforced. So what Starmer may well have done is open the doors to a whole other wave of immigration, and that is so politically dangerous for him. I mean, setting aside what it means for the country, it's really politically...
She didn't stop at his delivery. Oakeshott went straight for the jugular, skewering Starmer's Olympic-level flip-flopping and painting him as so indecisive he makes Hamlet look like an alpha. Passionately Remain on Brexit until he remembered votes exist north of Watford, pro, self-ID one day and Googling what is a woman the next, like Matt Walsh, on dodgy Wi-Fi. A man who changes positions more often than Boris Johnson revises the number of kids he'll admit actually exist.
Integrate really, really quickly. I thought that he was pretty weak once again. You know, each time he comes on, I'm afraid I see nothing that particularly impresses me. And trust me, I'd quite like to be impressed. You know, this I'm not really wanting to listen. My bandwidth for the Tories is probably minimal as most of the nation's after 14 years. I thought Keir Starmer was really on the back.
Oakeshott tore into his waffling with the elegance of a lion mauling a slow antelope, mocking Starmer's political compass as a broken weather vane in a tornado. 1 minute promising a bold future, the next hedging harder than a banker in 2008. And if he ever had principles, they're buried 6 feet. Alongside Labour's backbone. She didn't spare his Man of the People Act either. Starmer's idea of connecting with working class Britain is strolling past a Greggs like a man meeting liquid for the first time, prompting Oakeshott to liken his PR stunts to a malfunctioning AI loose in a football pub. Because the only sword he's ever pulled from a stone is probably buried deep in legal jargon.
We don't like Rishi's chairs. Can we change them? £28,643 on new chairs and new desks, furniture. That's outrageous, isn't it?
I mean, these buildings are actually really small. You know, when you go into them, you would be struck by just how small they are. So there isn't actually room for that many chairs and desks. So I'm intrigued to know how many were purchased for these colossal sums, but it's very symbolic of the whole attitude to waste of taxpayers' money, isn't it? It's public money, your money, my money, all of our listeners' money. Yeah. And if you can't get a good deal on your home furniture, then what possible hope have you got a good deal of running the country and all the major things that you need to procure? You know, this should be the easiest task, you know, and I'm pretty sure Habitat would have done. Yeah.
I don't think they needed to do it.
Starmer supposedly has a plan, meticulously crafted one cautious press release at a time, though Oakeshott wasn't buying it, quipping that if his personality were any more manufactured, it would come with a barcode. His speeches, she said, are so watered down they could pass for NH baby food, delivered with the enthusiasm of a substitute teacher reading a poem about mould. And on the economy, Starmer's claim that Labour is fiscally responsible was likened to juggling fire blindfolded in oven mitts, railing against Tory austerity while quietly offering the same freezes with cleaner branding. Steady and competent? Sure, next to a Tory circus he looks like a calm librarian in a food fight, but Oakeshott tore through that illusion in seconds. Being less chaotic isn't a policy, and he still manages to underperform with the zeal of a man allergic to commitment.
I mean, brilliant breakthrough. 8 Albanian criminals
after 2 years.
Bloody marvellous. What a fantastic use of taxpayers' money. And what the hell is the British taxpayer doing putting money into Albanian prisons? I mean, what? And why are we helping them net zero their police vehicles or prison vans or whatever that was? Just ridiculous. You know, we cannot be the kind of charity of the world. This just isn't sustainable.
Is Starmer's cabinet any better? Not a chance, according to Oakeshott, who dismissed Labour's front bench as a reunion of middle managers discovering the reply all button. Reeves sounds like she's reading a tax return aloud. Rayner has fire but terrifies the others. And Streeting is still polishing his LinkedIn just in case. Starmer's mission-based government was shredded as bland PowerPoint politics. Buzzwords over vision, metrics over passion, with slogans that could induce sleep paralysis. On immigration, he's all caution and hedging, pro-refugee 1 minute, nodding at voter concerns the next. And Oakeshott's final verdict: the only thing Starmer's truly firm on is never being firm on anything.
A man who said that he wants to talk to the private sector about the NHS, but they're all very good at it. When you watch something like that and you interview these people day in, day out like we do, you realise that actually they're not going to give away anything, which is in fact, this probably sounds an awful thing to say, but I don't think is very good for all of us. I think we should demand more honesty and more transparency from our politicians. Do you know what I mean?
Completely. And he's come up with a new line of defence on that unbelievable comment about not using private healthcare even if one of his relatives was really, really suffering. His new line of defence is quite a clever one, is, well, it would look awful for me to do that because, you know, I'm trying to become the Prime Minister of this country, so I can't be seen to skip the queue.
Isabel even dragged Starmer's backstory into the pit. His humble beginnings as a toolmaker's son barely passed muster when he grew up in a Surrey mansion with a paddock. His curated North London home looks straight out of a Waitrose catalogue. Oakeshott dubbed him the human version of a scented candle, respectable, harmless, and no threat to furniture. He tries to project strength but couldn't dominate a passive goldfish, and on presence, she nailed it. Starmer's charisma is an overcast sky, his inspiration a parking meter, and when he tries outrage, he just looks mildly inconvenienced, like someone handed him the wrong soy milk.
Moments ago, I signed a deal to secure the joint UK-US base on Diego Garcia. This is absolutely vital for our defence and intelligence, and therefore for the safety and security of the British people. The full assessment of why this is so important is highly classified, but I want to speak as frankly as I can. The strategic location of this base is of the utmost significance.
Oakeshott joked that Starmer's grand strategy is simply waiting for the British to tire of the Tories, less a campaign than a national sigh. He chairs a support group for voters who've given up on passion, offering lukewarm decaf and vague promises while expertly saying nothing, like building an IKEA cabinet with no screws. His attempts at edginess, like the beer and curry stunt, were shredded as timid and laughable. Starmer's rebellion is jaywalking cautiously while apologising mid-step. In short, he's airplane mode incarnate, always on, technically functioning, but completely disconnected. Oakeshott didn't need to fabricate anything. She just held up his political equivalent of room temperature soup and asked, "Is this really your plan for Britain?" Starmer wasn't just roasted, he was flamed. A man so committed to being inoffensive, he's practically invisible. Oakeshott even joked that Starmer's grand strategy for defeating Rishi Sunak isn't a rousing call to action or a bold manifesto. It's just banking on the British public being so soul-crushingly bored of the Tories that they vote Labour out of sheer desperation, like changing the wallpaper in a rental flat because you can't stand beige anymore. It's less a campaign and more a prolonged national sigh. Starmer isn't leading a political movement. He's chairing a weekly support group for people who've given up on political passion altogether. You can almost hear the kettle boiling in the background as he quietly offers voters a cup of lukewarm decaf and a pamphlet on rebuilding trust, which, in politician code, basically means, please don't expect too much. And the best part? Isabel Oakeshott didn't just roast him for the robotic things he says, she torched him for the things he carefully avoids saying. Starmer treats commitment like it's a haunted house full of accountability and consequence. Every time he's asked to take a stand, he does that peculiar political dance, mumbling vague phrases like difficult choices and finding the right balance, as if he's soothing a room full of stressed middle managers at a corporate mindfulness retreat. He has somehow mastered the ancient political art of saying absolutely nothing with such precision and polish that he could submit blank Word documents as speeches, and no one would notice. It's like watching someone build an IKEA cabinet with no screws, lots of effort, zero structure. She even took aim at his attempts to appear edgy. Remember the beer and curry incident? That tepid little stunt that was supposed to cast Starmer as some kind of rebellious maverick? Oakeshott didn't just mention it, she shredded it like a soggy manifesto. Watching him attempt to break the rules, she said, is like witnessing someone jaywalk while checking both ways 4 times and apologising mid-step. His idea of living dangerously is probably crossing at a yellow light while sipping lukewarm chai from a compostable cup and worrying if it's recyclable. She painted him not as a leader with vision, but as a man so committed to being inoffensive he's practically transparent. But hey, give him credit. He's consistent, consistently uninspiring, consistently vague, consistently beige. A man who once stood for something, maybe, but we'll never know, because he's already backpedaling in case it polls badly. Oakeshott didn't need to fabricate anything. She just pointed to the political equivalent of room temperature soup and asked, "Is this really your plan for Britain?" And just like that, Keir Starmer wasn't just roasted, he was flamed, flamboyantly and publicly. by a woman wielding sarcasm like a scalpel and facts like flaming arrows. Someone, please, hand this man an opinion, preferably one with a backbone, or at least a slightly interesting anecdote. Because right now, Starmer is one awkward pause away from turning into an email autoresponder.